"You're too boring, Levi. I need excitement in my life. I need passion. I need someone who actually lives instead of just existing." Those were the last words my wife Lisa spoke to me before she walked out of our house with 2 suitcases and moved in with Derek, her personal trainer from Elite Fitness. My name is Levi Harrison. I'm 36 years old and I'm an accountant in Portland, Oregon. According to my wife of 8 years, I was the most boring man who ever lived. I stood in our kitchen that Tuesday evening, still holding the dinner I had prepared, her favorite teriyaki salmon with jasmine rice, watching her car disappear down our quiet suburban street. The house felt different immediately. Emptier, but also somehow lighter. I set the plate down on our dining table, the same table where we had shared thousands of meals, and said 2 words to the empty room. "Good luck." I meant it, not sarcastically, not bitterly. I genuinely wished her luck with Derek, the 25-year-old fitness instructor with the perfect abs and the Harley Davidson. The man who represented everything I apparently wasn't. Spontaneous, exciting, dangerous. The man who had been texting her for months, sending shirtless photos and planning weekend getaways to the coast while I worked late preparing tax returns for our clients. Yes, our clients. Lisa had conveniently forgotten to mention that detail when she was calling me boring. She had also forgotten that the house she just walked out of was paid for by my boring job. The car she drove away in was financed through my boring credit score. The designer gym clothes she wore to meet Derek were purchased with my boring, steady income. But I didn't say any of that. I just said good luck and started cleaning up the kitchen. The signs had been there for months, maybe longer. Lisa had become increasingly restless, always complaining about our routine. "We never do anything spontaneous," she would say. "We're like an old married couple and we're not even 40 yet." She started going to the gym more frequently, spending hours there instead of coming home for dinner. She bought new clothes, changed her hair, started talking about people I had never met. Derek's name first came up 6 months ago. "My trainer thinks I should try rock climbing," she had said over breakfast one morning. "He says I need more adventure in my life." I had suggested we could try it together, but she dismissed the idea. "You wouldn't like it, Levi. It's not really your thing." She was probably right. Rock climbing wasn't my thing. Neither was skydiving, or motorcycle rides, or any of the other activities Derek apparently thought were essential for a fulfilling life. My idea of adventure was trying a new restaurant or taking a weekend trip to the coast with a good book. Lisa used to say she loved that about me, that I was her calm in the storm. Somewhere along the way, calm had become boring. I finished cleaning the kitchen and walked through our house, really looking at it for the first time in years. The mortgage was in both our names, but I had made every payment. The furniture we had chosen together, the artwork on the walls, the garden Lisa had wanted but never maintained. All of it paid for with my steady, predictable income from Patterson, and I had worked there for 12 years, starting as a junior accountant, fresh out of college, and working my way up to senior partner. Not exciting work, but important work. I helped people organize their finances, plan for retirement, navigate tax law. I was good at it because I was detail-oriented, methodical, and yes, probably boring by most people's standards. But boring had built this life. Boring had provided security and stability. Boring had been loyal and faithful and present for 8 years while Lisa figured out what she wanted. Now she had figured it out, and it wasn't me. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. If Lisa wanted excitement, she was going to get it. And if she thought boring was a weakness, she was about to learn how wrong she could be. The next morning, I went to work like always. Patterson and Associates occupied the 15th floor of a downtown Portland high-rise, and I had my own corner office with a view of Mount Hood on clear days. My colleagues asked about Lisa when they noticed I wasn't wearing my wedding ring anymore. "She found someone more exciting," I told them matter-of-factly. "We're getting divorced." They expected me to be devastated. They expected anger, tears, dramatic outbursts. Instead, I was remarkably calm. Maybe that was part of being boring. I processed things differently than other people. I didn't see the point in emotional displays when there was practical work to be done. My business partner, James Patterson, knocked on my office door around 10 that morning. "Live, I heard about Lisa. I'm sorry, man. You holding up okay? I'm fine, I said, and meant it. Actually, I might be better than fine. For the first time in months, I feel like I can think clearly. James sat down across from my desk. We had known each other for 12 years, and he was one of the few people who understood that my quiet nature wasn't weakness. It was focus. You know, Liv, I've been thinking about expanding the firm, opening a second location, maybe in Seattle. I've been waiting for the right time to bring it up with you. Why now? I asked, though I suspected I knew the answer. Because for the past year you've seemed distracted, like your mind was somewhere else. Today, you seem like yourself again. Sharp, present, ready for new challenges. He was right. I had been distracted, constantly worrying about Lisa's growing dissatisfaction, trying to figure out how to make her happy, how to be more exciting, more spontaneous. I had been apologizing for who I was, instead of embracing it. Tell me about Seattle, I said. By lunch, James and I had sketched out a business plan that would double our revenue within 2 years. The Seattle office would focus on small business consulting and tax preparation, areas where my methodical approach and attention to detail were exactly what clients needed. It was the kind of expansion I would have been too cautious to consider while Lisa was constantly criticizing my lack of spontaneity. I hired a divorce attorney that afternoon. Margaret Stone was known for being thorough and professional, exactly what I needed. When I explained the situation, she raised an eyebrow. She left you for a gym instructor. After 8 years of marriage. Any kids involved? No children, I replied. She said she wasn't ready for that level of responsibility. Too boring, apparently. Margaret pulled out a legal pad. Let's talk about assets. That's when I realized Lisa had made her first major mistake. She had always handled our social life while I handled our finances. She knew we were comfortable, but she had never paid attention to the details. She didn't know about the investment portfolio I had been building for 10 years. She didn't know about the rental property I had purchased in my name only, using money from my consulting work. She didn't know that my boring, methodical approach to money management had made me worth considerably more than she realized. Oregon is a community property state, Margaret explained, but separate assets acquired before marriage or through individual effort can be protected. Tell me everything. I told her everything. The stock options from my first job that I had reinvested carefully over 15 years. The side business I ran from home, helping small companies with their books, something Lisa had always dismissed as more boring work. The inheritance from my grandmother that I had turned into a diversified portfolio worth nearly $400,000. Lisa had been so busy finding me boring that she had never asked about any of it. Margaret leaned back in her chair, impressed. Your wife is going to be very surprised. Women who leave stable partners for excitement often don't realize what they're giving up until it's too late. I went home that night to a quiet house and cooked dinner for one. No drama, no loud music, no complaints about my choice of TV shows. It was peaceful. I read a book, something I hadn't had time for in years because Lisa always needed entertainment, needed conversation, needed constant stimulation. For the first time in months, I felt truly relaxed. But I also felt curious. Lisa had been so confident about leaving, so sure that Derek was her upgrade. I wondered if she had any idea what she was walking into. Being the methodical person I am, I decided to find out. A quick LinkedIn search revealed that Derek Martinez had worked at 3 different gyms in the past 2 years. Each time he had left under circumstances that weren't entirely clear. Elite Fitness was his newest employer, and from what I could gather through mutual connections, his employment there was already on shaky ground. I dug deeper. Derek's Instagram was public, filled with shirtless photos, expensive watches, and pictures of motorcycles and cars that seemed beyond the budget of a personal trainer. His posts showed a lifestyle that required significantly more income than Elite Fitness likely provided. Either Derek had family money or he was financing his exciting lifestyle through other means. A property search showed that Derek rented a studio apartment in one of Portland's trendier neighborhoods. The rent alone would consume most of a trainer's salary, leaving little for the designer clothes and weekend trips he constantly posted about. Credit reports weren't accessible to me, but I didn't need them to see the pattern. Derek was living beyond his means, and Lisa had just become his solution to that problem. 3 weeks after Lisa moved out, I received the first phone call. "Levi, we need to talk about the divorce papers," Lisa said, her voice tight with stress I hadn't heard in years. "What about them?" I asked, genuinely curious. "These numbers can't be right. There's no way you have this much money. The investment accounts, the rental property, that consulting business, where did all this come from?" "The numbers are accurate, Lisa. I've always been good with numbers. It's one of my boring skills. But we never talked about investments or rental properties, or you never asked," I interrupted gently. "You were too busy telling me how boring I was to be interested in boring things like financial planning." There was a long pause. I could hear Derek's voice in the background, asking who she was talking to. When Lisa spoke again, her tone had changed completely. "Levi, maybe we should slow down on this divorce. Maybe we can work things out. I've been thinking about us, about what we had. I may have been hasty." "Lisa, you're living with Derek. You've been posting pictures of your exciting new life all over social media. You told everyone we know that I was too boring to be with. You can't take that back now just because you found out boring people sometimes have interesting bank accounts. But Derek and it's not what I thought it would be. He's actually kind of immature and financially irresponsible, and he expects me to pay for everything because I have the house and the steady job. I didn't realize how good I had it with you." I almost laughed. Almost. Lisa had spent months criticizing my stability, and now she was discovering that excitement came with a price tag she couldn't afford. "Good luck," I said, and hung up. I blocked her number after that, not out of anger, but because I knew Lisa well enough to know she would keep calling. She was realizing that excitement and stability weren't mutually exclusive. But that lesson was coming too late. Derek had shown her his true colors, and she was starting to understand that her boring husband had been her security all along. Margaret had been right about one thing. Lisa was very surprised by the divorce settlement. After all assets were properly classified and divided, she was entitled to the house we had shared and half of our joint savings. I kept everything I had built independently, which was considerably more than she had ever imagined. "Your ex-wife's attorney called," Margaret informed me during one of our meetings. "She's claiming you hid assets from her during the marriage." "I never hid anything. I just never bragged about it. She can have access to all my financial records if she wants. She'll find that every dollar is properly documented and legally mine." The investigation took 3 months. Lisa's attorney went through everything with forensic accountants, looking for some way to claim a larger share. What they found was exactly what I had told them they would find. A boring man who had been methodically building wealth for years while his wife criticized him for being unexciting. During those 3 months, I heard things through mutual friends. Lisa's exciting new life was becoming expensive and complicated. Derek had quit his job at Elite Fitness after a confrontation with management about his attendance. Apparently, living with Lisa had made him feel he didn't need to show up consistently. He was now pursuing opportunities in personal training, which seemed to involve a lot of talking and very little actual work. Lisa was covering all their expenses: the mortgage on our house, Derek's motorcycle payments, their weekend trips to the coast that she posted about on social media with increasingly forced smiles. Her teacher's salary, which had been supplemental income when we were married, was now stretched thin, supporting 2 people, and Derek's expensive tastes. "She's been asking people about you," my friend Tom mentioned when we met for coffee. Tom worked at the school district with Lisa and had always been neutral in our relationship. "Wanting to know how you're doing, whether you're dating anyone, stuff like that." "How is she doing?" I asked, genuinely curious. Tom shook his head. "Not great. She looks tired all the time. Derek shows up at school events sometimes, and it's awkward. He doesn't really fit in with the other teachers and their spouses." Last week at the faculty meeting, someone made a joke about retirement planning, and Lisa got really upset. Started crying right there in the conference room. I felt a pang of something, not regret exactly, but sadness for the woman I had once loved. Lisa was learning the hard way that excitement was expensive, both financially and emotionally. The final settlement was exactly what Margaret had predicted. Lisa got the house and her share of joint assets. I kept my investments, my rental property, and my business. She also had to pay half of the legal fees, since her claim of hidden assets was found to be baseless. 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized, I got a call from my property manager. Levi, I've got good news and interesting news. The good news is we found a tenant for the downtown loft. Young professional, excellent credit, signed a 2-year lease. What's the interesting news? The tenant asked specifically about the building's security and parking. Apparently, she's concerned about an ex-boyfriend who's been bothering her. Name's Derek Martinez. Ring any bells? I sat back in my chair, pieces clicking into place. Yes, it does. What did you tell her? That our building has excellent security and that we don't tolerate harassment of any kind. She seemed very relieved, said she just wanted somewhere safe to start over. After I hung up, I realized Derek's pattern was becoming clear. This wasn't his first relationship with an older woman who had financial stability. Lisa wasn't his first victim. She was just his latest mark. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I heard through mutual friends that Lisa and Derek had broken up. The story came to me in pieces from different sources, but the picture it painted was devastating. According to Sarah, another teacher at Lisa's school, things had started falling apart when Derek brought another woman to a faculty barbecue. He introduced her as his business partner for his new personal training venture, but the way they acted together made it clear their partnership extended beyond business. Lisa spent the entire evening trying to pretend everything was normal while Derek openly flirted with this woman in front of her colleagues. It was painful to watch, Sarah told me when we ran into each other at the grocery store. Lisa was trying so hard to save face, but everyone could see what was happening. Derek didn't even try to hide it. Tom provided more details when I saw him at our monthly poker game. Derek had been cheating for months, apparently, using Lisa's house to meet other women when she was at work. The neighbors started talking, and eventually someone told Lisa. When she confronted him, he didn't even deny it, just said he wasn't ready to be tied down to one person. But the real kicker came from my accountant colleague Janet, whose cousin worked at Elite Fitness. That Derek got, he never quit his job there. He was fired for stealing from clients and inappropriate behavior with female members. Elite had to settle 2 harassment lawsuits because of him. Lisa had no idea. She thought he left because he was too good for the job. The final piece of the puzzle came from my property manager 3 weeks later. Remember that tenant I told you about? The one running from Derek Martinez? Well, she's got quite a story. Turns out Derek's been running this same scam for years. Targets women with stable jobs and savings, moves in fast, gets them emotionally invested, then bleeds them dry. She lost her house, her retirement savings, everything before she figured out what he was doing. I sat in my office that afternoon, thinking about Lisa. Despite everything she had put me through, I felt genuinely sorry for her. She had been looking for excitement and passion, and instead she had found a predator who saw her as nothing more than a bank account with emotions attached. 8 months after our divorce, I bought a second rental property with the money I had saved from not supporting Derek's expensive lifestyle. The irony wasn't lost on me. My boring investment strategy was growing stronger, while Lisa's exciting adventure had left her financially and emotionally destroyed. 9 months after our divorce, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Levi, the voice was shaky, desperate, barely recognizable as the confident woman who had called me boring less than a year ago. It's Lisa. I'm at a women's shelter downtown. I know I don't have the right to ask, but I need help. Derek. He isn't who I thought he was. He got violent when I wouldn't give him more money, and I had to leave. I lost the house because I couldn't make the payments alone after he maxed out my credit cards, and I don't have anywhere else to go. Could you maybe help me? Just until I get back on my feet. I stared at the phone for a long moment, thinking about the woman who had called me too boring to love, the woman who had left me for excitement and passion and danger, the woman who had discovered too late that boring qualities like stability, reliability, and financial responsibility weren't character flaws. They were the foundation of a secure life. Lisa, I said quietly, I hope you find the help you need. There are resources available for people in your situation, but that help won't be coming from me. Levi, please. I know I hurt you, but I'm desperate. I have nowhere else to turn. I made a terrible mistake, and I'm paying for it. Doesn't our 8 years together mean anything? Those 8 years meant everything to me, I replied. That's exactly why I can't help you now. You didn't just leave me, Lisa. You destroyed those 8 years by calling them boring, meaningless, not enough. You told everyone we knew that I was a failure as a husband because I wasn't exciting enough. You can't erase that now just because exciting turned out to be dangerous. I hung up. I didn't hang up out of cruelty or revenge. I hung up because Lisa needed to learn a lesson that only comes from facing consequences. She had made her choice when she decided that boring was worse than dangerous. She had made her choice when she prioritized excitement over stability. She had made her choice when she walked out of a secure home to live with a man she barely knew. Those choices had consequences, and protecting her from those consequences wouldn't help her grow as a person. 2 hours later, she called again. I didn't answer. She called 6 more times over the next 3 days. I didn't answer any of them. I did, however, make an anonymous donation to the women's shelter she had mentioned, not because I wanted to help Lisa specifically, but because I believed in helping people who were genuinely trying to rebuild their lives. If Lisa was serious about changing, she would find a way to do it without my help. If she wasn't serious, then my help would only enable her to make more poor decisions. 6 months later, I heard she had moved back to her hometown in California to live with her parents while she went back to school for nursing. I hoped it was true. I hoped she was building a stable, responsible life for herself. I hoped she had learned to appreciate boring qualities like dedication, reliability, and long-term thinking. But most of all, I hoped she had learned that excitement and stability weren't opposites. They were both necessary parts of a balanced life. A year after that phone call from the shelter, I met Emma at a bookstore. She was quiet, thoughtful, and looking for the same book I was, a biography of Warren Buffett. We started talking about investing, then about books, then about travel. She was a librarian who had spent 10 years methodically icing money to buy her own house. She appreciated boring qualities like consistency and planning. You know what I love about you? She told me on our 6th date, as we sat in my living room, reading together on a Sunday afternoon. You're so wonderfully stable. There's something really attractive about a man who has his life together. I looked up from my book and smiled. Most people would call that boring. Most people are wrong, she said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. Boring is underrated. 2 years later, Emma and I got married in a small ceremony at the courthouse. No drama, no excessive spending, no need to prove anything to anyone. Just 2 people who appreciated the beauty of a quiet, stable life, built on mutual respect and shared value. Lisa sent a wedding card, which surprised me. Inside, she had written a simple message. Congratulations. I'm sorry it took me so long to understand what I had. I hope you're happy. I was happy. Deeply, quietly, boringly happy. Sometimes the most exciting thing in life is realizing that you don't need excitement to be fulfilled. Sometimes the greatest adventure is building something solid and lasting with someone who appreciates your strengths instead of criticizing them. And sometimes the best revenge is simply living well while the people who underestimated you learn the hard way that boring qualities like loyalty, stability, and financial responsibility are actually incredibly valuable in a partner. Lisa had wanted excitement. She got it. I had wanted peace. I got that too. In the end, we both got exactly what we asked for.